Welcome to Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle, where professionals in their field educate, inform and inspire the community to have healthier and more balanced lifestyles and also live the life they want. Our first guest for today is youth educator Marilou Coombe, who will be talking to us about supporting our children in challenging times. Welcome, Marilou.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
So I think first of all, I just want to ask, what is it that children want?
Where do we even start with that question? What do children want? I feel like everybody, whole humanity, what we really want is to belong, to be seen, to be heard, to fit in mainly. But that really trickles down to children even more. Especially if we look at teenagers in particular, what they really, really want is to belong, to fit in, to know that they've got their tribe, their friendships. You know, most people, whether it's the educators, whether it's the parents, you know, in society we think kids, oh yeah, we must give them this, we must give them this, we must give them that. But if you actually zoom out and have a look, their friendships is the most important thing to them. And also we must remember that it just depends on their age, it depends on their background as well, depending like whether it's culture, you know, where they live, and also whether, you know, their gender, like if they are female, male, like the brain construct there and their needs is very different as well, that we must take into consideration. So another challenge that our children are also having is that we don't have the structure of the family and the events and the things that we used to do growing up, yeah? So giving them more options, inviting them to be more active in their community. When I was younger, like we used to do a lot of community events, like be involved in community events or a lot of going to visit family and friends and so on. I just don't think that occurs for a lot of these kids today either. So they don't have that extra connection hub that they can go to the way that we used to. So they rely more on that online stuff. And then what happens in that as well, the challenge is, like I was saying before, with the dopamine hit that they get, being online anymore, anything else feels really boring. And it's like, why would they go outside to make the effort to do this event when they can just sit in their room, not be bothered, or play and talk to their friends that way? And another thing as well, what I'm observing is the more reserved kids, the more, antisocial kids, in their mind, it's like, well, I can connect to anyone in the world. So it's better that I stay in this little box. But then the challenge with that is what's happening is they're not growing themselves by being exposed to different experiences, yeah, because they feel safe in this little bubble of being in their room and then being able to talk to anyone in the world. And that has two facets, like it's got positives and negatives to it, right? You know, some people will go, oh, I'm glad my son's at home doing this or my child is at home doing this because at least I know where they are. But then there's a lot of other skills that they're missing out on, which I think that brings in that challenge of like their anxiety and, you know, like what comes up for them. They feel like they're fitting in and belonging, but then as soon as they step out that door, they're not. So that's got to be managed a little bit better, I think, as well.
So what are you finding is the biggest challenge for the youth nowadays?
The biggest challenge, number one challenge I find is the bullying that they are going through. That's a massive challenge for them, and finding the right friendship circles. Most kids I see, that's their number one issue. It's like, I don't fit in, I'm going through this, I'm being teased about this. And there's layers that comes with that because these are issues that we've all gone through. I went through massive bullying, not fitting in. So it's not like a new problem per se, but the challenges of today are a little bit different. So number one would be the use of the ease of technology and social media, and everything's got a bit of yin and yang, right? Everything's got polarity views on it. Like there's the good and the bad that comes with it. But how that's really impacting our children today and what's a massive challenge for them. When I was younger, the bullying, for example, would stop after I went home and I would get that little bit of a break from it all. Whereas now, because they're online, it's 24/7. It's in their face constantly, yeah? Their friendship circles. Like I'll give you an example with a 14-year-old in a Snapchat group with a bunch of girls, and all of a sudden she sees that she's being left out of all their social events, but she's still in the chat, so she can see everything that's going on, she can see everything they're discussing, but she's left out of it. And so she spiraled down into depression. not being able to communicate with them, feeling left out, not feeling seen, not belonging, what's wrong with me? And so that brings up a whole bunch of other stuff about body image, about her personality, and she can see this 24/7, yeah? So there's no break from that. Whereas when I was younger, if my friends went out, I wouldn't know anything about it unless they told me. So it's not enough, it's in their face all the time now. That's a really massive challenge. And another thing with that as well, like when it comes to the online stuff, that's a massive challenge for them. It's like the way the algorithms work, the way they target them with the marketing, the way they target their insecurities. Again, it's something that's 24/7, yeah? Back in my days again, I had the magazines, but then I was able to put them away, right? So now it's like constantly in your face, in your face, in your face. And I think that's a massive challenge for them in a lot of ways. And also if we want to look at it from a psychological, like a neuro perspective, what's happening with the brain, with the scrolling, with the constant online stuff, like there's been a drop in children's literacy, numeracy, being able to read and write because they're constantly online getting their information. And when you are doing that, dopamine hits in the brain a lot differently and the other chemicals aren't released. Whereas if you pick up a book or you do that sort of activity, there's different chemicals that are being released in the brain as well, like not just the dopamine. But then that's addictive to just go for the dopamine hit, and everything else seems boring in comparison, right? That is a massive challenge I see with young people and having to teach them to retrain their brain.
What kind of support, what can we do, and what advice do you have on how we can support the youth through this?
Yes, this is not just for the parents, because I'm a parent as well, but it's for anybody that deals with children. And even if you don't have children in your life, like even out just being publicly, children are always watching us, right? And, we kind of tell them stay off technology, but then the adults have the issues with being on technology, right? Like we're doing the same thing. So we can't be telling children to do one thing and then we do something else. I think that's really, really important. But listening to children and working with them rather than having this autocratic kind of authoritative, I'm the adult, you've got to do as I say because I know best. And we've got to remember as adults, we're also only projecting from our experiences and our, perception and our beliefs and our own growth, I guess. So that could be quite limited. So, just going back to what kids really want is to belong, to be seen, to be heard. So work with that as an adult in their life, yeah? Give them the opportunity to work with them. Like I always just say, go in with a young person and collaborate with them. Ask them, hey, what do you want? What do you think of this? How does that make you feel? What do you think you could do better? Rather than just going in there going, right, you're too addicted to the iPad, I'm going to take that away from you. And, I'm going to kick you outside kind of thing. Like it's just a new way of thinking and asking them and working with them rather than assuming and, coming from your own projection.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Marilou.
Thank you.
If you would like to know more about supporting our children during challenging times or more about Marilou, you can visit her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And after the break, we'll be back with another interesting guest and another great topic. Stay tuned. After the break, root cause and somatic therapist Nicole Healy will be talking about navigating grief of loving someone in addiction. Welcome back. Our second guest is root cause and somatic therapist Nicole Healy, and she will be talking about navigating grief of loving someone in addiction. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you for having me.
So talk to me a little bit about what is addiction and what is it to mean to navigate grief of someone who's still alive?
So addiction really is any behaviour that we have a craving for, that when we partake in that behaviour we find relief, and will continue to do it even though it has a negative or a heavy impact on other areas of our life. And it's important to note that addiction is in a spectrum. So at the lower end of the scale will be things like scrolling on your phone, maybe working too many hours, those lower impact type of behaviours. And the other end of the scale is things like drugs, alcohol, gambling, porn, that will have a heavier impact on your life. And those are the addictions that generally have a stigma attached to them, which quite often can keep families, loved ones, even the person in addiction hiding that behaviour away. Now, understanding addiction for me meant that I understood myself more and realised that I had carried an addiction to food for most of my life. And this began when I was around 4 and my father suddenly passed away. And everybody came, as they do, and they brought lots of food and lots of sometimes sort of food. And I had been spending my life trying to recreate the love and the support that I received through the food. So as a 4-year-old, I just knew that I wanted to feel that support again, and I have lived that. So whenever I have felt angry, anxious, hurt, I have turned to food to soothe myself. And understanding that has meant that I can show myself compassion, and then that compassion has also been able to extend towards my partner with his addiction as well. So hopefully when people understand that, they can be more compassionate towards themselves and their loved one. And navigating the grief really is having this person that you love start to maybe change in behaviour, maybe feel more distant, maybe you're not really included in what's going on in their life anymore. Maybe they're not involved in family events. Maybe they just feel like even though they're sitting near you, they're a million miles away. And the way that we can feel about that is very similar to grieving someone who maybe has passed, where we will feel sad, maybe anxious, maybe confused, and that can bring on the despair of not knowing how to support them and what to do, and usually trying to navigate it on our own because we maybe feel there's too much of a stigma to reach out. And that can be a really heavy place to find yourself in.
And you did mention stigma just now. What does that mean? I mean, is there still a very big stigma when it comes to admitting that, oh, you know what, I'm struggling a little bit as well. I'm trying to navigate these feelings. How do I do that?
I think the stigma firstly comes with addiction and the judgment that we may feel, and it might be there, it might not, but we do see it in a lot in society where there is judgment or people think addiction is a choice, and families maybe feel that it's a failure on their part, especially if it's their child, so they maybe don't want to reach out. So that adds to the grief as well, that you're navigating it alone. But understanding that it's not a choice. If you think about my story, that 4-year-old didn't choose to use food as a way to soothe herself. Someone who maybe finds themselves in drug addiction won't choose drug to be the thing that soothes them. It's just the thing that works. So hopefully understanding that, you can see addiction a bit differently and maybe feel more willing or more safe to reach out to loved ones. So if you think back to the story of me as a 4-year-old using food, a 4-year-old doesn't consciously choose to use food as a way to soothe herself. It is just something that was there that brought relief, that has continued to soothe me throughout my life. And I'm really grateful for it, because I think, how would I have navigated so many challenging situations without that there is a support? Now, quite often for families too, the stigma that is attached to addiction will lead them to navigating in silence, and maybe that can lead to other things like feeling depressed, feeling isolated, feeling heartbroken, disengaging from life because they feel like they're almost running on empty, just trying to get through all the chaos and all the events that comes with loving someone in addiction. And I think it's really important to give yourself some grace with that and understand it's not a situation you chose to be in. Your loved one didn't choose it either, but really important for us loved ones to go, well, I didn't choose to be here. I'm going to give myself some grace with this, and maybe try to start to think about, what can I do that is going to help me, even in little ways. That can be something that you maybe enjoyed doing before you started to feel lost. It might be something new you might want to try that feels it can bring you some comfort, or it feels safe.
Do you have any advice for our viewers? Anyone who might be navigating this kind of grief, what can they do? What next steps can they take?
I think the first step is to be really aware of how you are actually feeling, maybe check in. And if you are noticing that you're maybe not coping and feeling like you're engaging in life maybe you feel like you're just surviving rather than thriving, to first thing, think about getting some professional support. There is lots of great people out there that can support you. I think also too, to give yourself some kindness, to understand this is a really challenging situation, and I know it's hard to reach out, but find some safe spaces, whether that's loved ones that when you do talk to them, you feel heard and valued, because the last thing that we need is judgment. We are already living a life where we do already feel a lot of that, and that's not very helpful. So just be really kind to self, get that professional support, and hopefully things can start to turn around for you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Nicole.
Thank you for having me.
If you'd like to know more about navigating grief of loving someone with an addiction, or about Nicole, you can check out her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And we'll be back after a short break with another interesting guest and great topic.
Stay tuned. After the break, health coach Denise Mokadsi will discuss the topic, is anxiety and depression or brain fog in your DNA? Welcome back. Our last guest is health coach Denise Mokadsi, and the topic we'll be discussing is anxiety, depression and brain fog in your DNA, and what your genes reveal about you and your mental health and what you can do about it. Welcome, Denise.
Hi, how you going?
Many people struggle with mental health issues and depression and anxiety and brain fog. How do our genetics play a part in that?
Many people do struggle with mental health issues, and we've got a very stressful lifestyle, most of us. And epigenetics is really a way that we can look at how can we use our genes as information to how we might be able to better handle mental health. Epigenetics might be a term that viewers have heard of before, but may not really understand. An easy way to look at it, I find, is to use an analogy, and this particular one could be like music. So if we think of our DNA or our genes like the notes on a sheet of music, and when we can't change that, so the notes are already there, but how we play those notes is kind of like our lifestyle, and together how we play the notes is our result, like our outcomes that we see. That together is kind of the epigenetics. So basically it's our lifestyle influencing our genes. And when we understand how we might be able to do certain things in our lifestyle to get better influences on our genes, then we can have a bit more control over how we handle stress and that kind of, how we're coming across from a mental perspective, how well we can handle things because of what we're doing in our lifestyle.
Can you share some examples of knowing your genetic profile and how it can help someone manage their mental health issues?
Because we're all individuals, we've all got different genetic profiles basically. But when we know our own profile, it can help us manage our experiences with more knowledge, I guess, more power on how we react to something. The differences do come a lot quite through hormones. So for example, someone might be more sensitive to adrenaline, for example, and say something happens where you have a negative response to that episode or that experience, you might be more likely to respond from the lens of adrenaline. So you might be more like wanting to attack. Like adrenaline's like that fight, we've got the fight, flight, freeze. So adrenaline's going to push someone more to react that way. And whereas someone else might react more from hide away or introversion rather than sort of fight into something. So the way that we respond to our experiences really will influence how we live our life, basically. So when we know that, we know we've got a particular genetic profile that is this way inclined, we can mitigate some of the ways that we respond, knowing that we're more likely to respond with an attack, for example, or more likely to run away from a thing. And so that's one way that we can use our genetic profile to influence how we might think about something and react to something, and hence our mental health, or how we interpret all of that. There are other ways that we can look even deeper as well in our genetic sequence. Depending on what genes someone has, they may or may not metabolize certain hormones and neurotransmitters a particular way. And that can also affect our brain health, as can our diet. If we're not eating the right foods that allow these genes or enzymes to function properly, then you can also affect your mental health. It can be very complicated, so I'm just trying to keep it fairly simple, but personalities and all of that is like our biology. We are born with these predispositions to act and respond a certain way, and when we know that about ourselves, then we just can be a bit more empowered about the situation and our experience.
Denise, what are some tips for our viewers for them improving their mental health and resilience?
When it comes to mental health, if we think about our brain, it's largely fat. So eating lots of healthy fats like the omega-3s, the leafy greens, the fish, avocados, walnuts, all of those types of things to really help have a healthy brain is going to help from a physical perspective with our mental health. Exercise is another really great tip for people. If we could bottle exercise as a pill, antidepressant, the results that you get from exercise outweigh any benefit that a pill for, depression might do. So exercise is always a really good one, just to be moving. And relationships, social relationships with people can help someone's mental health. If you're very isolated, it can be hard to manage what's going on, but when you've got good social support, then you can talk about what you're feeling and get support that way. But I think too, especially with mental health issues, if anyone has any concerns, then it's always best to seek professional advice to help someone navigate their mental health.
Thanks, Denise.
Thank you.
Such important information. If you'd like to know more about Denise and how genetics and DNA can influence your mental health, please go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And that's all for us for today. We'll say bye-bye until next time. If you'd like to know more about our show, please like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.